Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, which verse are we doing? 16?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Shri Shuka Uvacha.
Shuka Uvacha.
Iti nigadhenabhishtu yamano bhagavan animishar shabho varsha.
Iti nigadena
Yamano
Bhagavan Animishar Shabho Varsha.
Dharabhivadita vivandita charanah sadayam idam ah.
Dharabhivadita Vivandita Charana Sadayam Idam Ah.
Shukadev Goswami said, the priests who were even worshipped by King Nabhi, the emperor of Bharatvarsh, offered prayers in prose. Generally, they were in poetry, and bowed down at the Lord's lotus feet. The Lord of Lords, the ruler of the demigods, was very pleased with them, and he began to speak as follows. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Aho bataham rishayo bhavadbhir avitat girbhir varam asulabham.
Aho bataham rishayo bhavadbhir avitat girbhir varam asulabham.
Abhiyachito yad amushyatmajo maya sadrisho bhuyaditi mahamamaham.
Abhiyachito yad amushyatmajo maya sadrisho bhuyaditi mahamamaham.
Evabhi rupah kaivalyad athapi brahmavado na mrisha bhavitum arhati. Mamev hi mukham yadvija devakulam. Yes, someone like to read?
Narrate, Prabhu.
Yes, please.
Okay. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead replied, O great sages, I am certainly very pleased with your prayers. You are all truthful. You have prayed for the benediction of son like me for King Nabi, but this is very difficult to obtain. Since I am the Supreme Person without a second, and since no one is equal to me, another personality like me is not possible to find. In any case, because you are all qualified Brahmanas, your vibration should not prove untrue. I consider the Brahmanas who are well qualified with Brahmanical qualities to be as good as my own mouth. Purport. The word avitatha girbhihi means though they whose spoken vibrations cannot be nullified. The Brahmanas, Dvija, the twice born, are given a chance by the sastric regulation to become almost as powerful as the Supreme Lord. Whatever a Brahmana speaks cannot be nullified or changed in any circumstance. According to the Vedic injunction, a Brahmana is the mouth of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, in all rituals, a Brahmana is offered food, Brahmana Bhojana. Because when a Brahmana eats, it is considered that the Supreme Lord himself eats. Similarly, whatever a Brahmana speaks cannot be changed, it must act. The learned sages who were priests at Maharaja Nabhi's sacrifice were not only Brahmanas but were so qualified that they were like devas, demigods, or God himself. If this were not the case, how could they invite Lord Vishnu to come to the sacrificial arena? God is one, and God does not belong to this or that religion. In Kali Yuga, different religious sects consider their God to be different from the God of others, but that is not possible. God is one, and he is appreciated according to the different angles of the vision. In this verse, the word Kaivalya Kaivalyat means that God has no competitor. There is only one God. In the Svetsavattara Upanishad 6.8, it is said, Natat samas chabhyadhikas cha drishyate. No one is found to be equal to him or greater than him. That is the definition of the God. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu. So Krishna is saying, Avajananti mama mudha. Fools cannot understand me. Actually, who is a fool? Anyone who is attracted to the material energy is a fool. But as soon as we are attracted to material energy, it clearly means that we are not attracted to Krishna. Because attraction to Krishna and material energy cannot exist simultaneously. Krishna Surya Sam Maya hai andhakar. Jahan Krishna tahan nahi mayar adhikar. So if you're looking at the sun, you cannot see shadows. But if you're seeing the shadow, it means that you can't see the sun. So that's the nature of Maya. So if we want to see how advanced we are in Krishna consciousness, we have to see how much we are attracted to the material energy. Even if there is a trace attraction, we are not fully attracted to Krishna. So we need to struggle harder. Now, a very interesting point that whatever a Brahmana speaks cannot be nullified or changed in any circumstance. Brahma janat iti Brahmana. One who has realized Brahman, he is Brahmana. That means he is as good as the Supreme Lord. So Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita also that Brahmanas, their activities are yajan, yajan, pathan, pathan. So Brahmanas, by willingly sacrificing all material enjoyment and all material facilities, they become very dear to Krishna. Brahmanas are considered to be the mouth of Vishnu. So if one wants to feed bhoga to the Supreme Lord, he can feed the Brahmanas. Whatever is accepted by the Brahmana is acceptable to the Supreme Lord, because the Brahmana's objective in life is the same as that of Krishna. So this Brahmana is by guna and karma. Of course, this is not like we're talking about caste Brahmanas here, talking about qualified Brahmanas. So when one is fully qualified with Brahmanical abilities and education, then he becomes as good as the Supreme Lord. Another interesting point is, once Srila Prabhupada mentioned that 12 years, if you practice strict brahmacharya, then whatever you say will come true. So that means if you have practiced devotional service very strictly for 12 years, whatever you say will come true. Srila Prabhupada clearly mentions this. So the meaning of that is, see, now here Brahmanas have invited the Supreme Lord. Actually, who can invite Supreme Lord? The Supreme Lord is Swarat. He's completely independent. But still he arrived by this invitation because Brahmanas had invited him out of his obligation. Like a child, a small child, like a crawling baby or a toddler, he may call his father and say, okay, please come to the window and see something. Now, the father can simply slap the child and tell him to shut up. And the child won't do anything. The child can't do anything. But the father willingly goes, happily goes there, as if obliged. So why is that? Because the son is helplessly dependent on him. The baby is helplessly dependent. Therefore, the father considers it an obligation to please the child. So there is a bondage of obligation and affection. So that is the relationship between the living entity and the Supreme Lord. So if the living entity is completely surrendered to Krishna, then Krishna is obliged. What qualifications do gopis have really? Actually, gopis are like the best illustrative example of devotion. They are very dear to Krishna, that's one thing. But even if you see, even if you try to analyze the position and character of gopis, you can easily understand what devotion really means. What are gopis? Unqualified cowherd maidens from forest village. That's what they are. So what is their qualification? Really nothing. How qualified can they really be? They're just cowherd girls. They're just, milkmaids. What can they really know? They are not educated. They are not very cultured or sophisticated like the queens of Dwarka. In fact, this is the thing that they mention in Kurukshetra to the Lord, that your queens must be very sophisticated and beautiful. That's why you don't want to come to us anymore. So we can understand from that statement that the cowherd girls of Vrindavan are not very sophisticated ladies either. Not educated, not very sophisticated. So we can definitely also understand that they are not as good looking as the queens of Dwarka. But still, we say Ramya Kajit Upasana Vrajvadhu Vargena Kalpita. Why do we say that? Because they are completely surrendered to Krishna. So they have no qualification, materially speaking, and yet they are supremely qualified because their affection and attachment to Krishna is complete. So Brahmanas, because they are helplessly and completely dependent on the Lord is obliged to fulfill their wishes. And also because the Brahmana will never have any unnecessary desires. And otherwise, how is he a Brahmana? Brahmana means no unnecessary desires, completely situated on the platform of Brahman. So, because such Brahmanas invited the Supreme Lord, he appeared out of his own free will to please his devotees. Hare Krishna. Yes. Any questions or comments? Can we continue?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Dandvat Pranam. Prabhuji, we know that, as you said, the gopis were unqualified and like very simple. But we also know that they were those great rishis who have done tapasya for so many years. And if they still have that knowledge,
no. See, if they have that knowledge, they will never be able to love Krishna. How will they love Krishna when they realize that Krishna is, aham sarvasya prabhava mattah sarvam pravartate abhigyaha swarat? How can you love such a personality? Then he's not a personality, he's a system. He's a phenomenon. I mean, can anyone love the universe? Can you love the solar system? Can you love a railway locomotive? So much power, so much, effulgence and everything. Krishna is a simple cowherd boy. They consider him a simple cowherd boy. Mother Yashoda really thinks he's a naughty little boy. And so she wants to punish him seriously. And that is what Krishna relishes. Actually, if you have studied Chaitanya Charitamrita, the very first chapter, this point is mentioned. That the Lord relishes that sweet loving exchange, not the grandeur of Dwarka or the grandeur of, Shantaras. So these, certainly, some of these gopis are, of course, most of these gopis are Nitya Siddhas. They are not really like tapasvis or anything. Some of them are sages who have acquired all the knowledge, performed all the austerities and sacrifices to come to a platform where they can forget everything. You getting it?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So they have forgotten completely. So they may have performed all the austerities to come to a platform where they do not want to know Krishna. They just want to love him. Otherwise, this love will be mixed with awe and reverence. And Krishna doesn't relish reverence. So therefore, to get to the platform of pure love or Madhurya Ras is very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult because, when you are intimate with someone, there is always a chance of committing aparadh. You can always commit some offense. Like Srila Prabhupada would mention that, it's not a good policy to be too close to the spiritual master. Because then you may think that he's an ordinary man. So it's better to serve the spiritual master's instructions than to try to associate with his body. So like that, Krishna also is the same thing. When Krishna appeared in this world, not many people actually recognized him as the Supreme Lord, the Lord of all that be. Ishvara Paramaha Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda, Sarvakaran Karanam. But so many people could not understand. Jarasandha was a great scholar. Jarasandha was not some illiterate buffoon. He was a great scholar. And yet, he harbored enmity against Krishna and he tried to kill him 17 times. These great kings, Duryodhan was not a fool. He was a disciple of Dronacharya, so not some fool. Well versed in Vedic knowledge, he was also. But nobody could recognize Krishna. Because Krishna, Vedeshu Durlabh, Adurlabham Atma Bhaktao. So Vedeshu Durlabh. One cannot know Krishna by simply studies of scriptures. Adurlabham Atma Bhaktao. By rendering loving devotional service, Krishna reveals that knowledge. tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Then dadami buddhi yogam tam. I give the intelligence by which they can come to me. So this intelligence to know Krishna requires Krishna's mercy. But to reach up to that point of getting Krishna's mercy, we have to purify and simplify ourselves. We cannot take our big qualifications to Krishna. The great sages perform so many austerities, study so many scriptures, but until they come to the point of complete surrender to Krishna, their austerities are not perfect.
Okay, Prabhuji. Understood. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yes. Text 18. Anyone else has a question or comment here? Okay, then we continue. Text 18.
Shall
Tata
I read?
Agni. Hare Krishna. Yes.
I thought we need to start. Sorry,
Oh,
Prabhuji.
okay. No problem. Tata Agni Driyemsha Kalya Vatarishyamya Atmatulyam Anupalabhavana.
तथा आग्निद्रिये अंशकलया वतरिष्याम्य आत्मतुल्यम् अनुपलभ्यमानः.
Atmatulyam.
Yes, would someone like to read?
Very good.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Translation. Since I cannot find anyone equal to me, I shall personally expand myself into a plenary portion and thus admit myself in the womb of Meru Devi, the wife of Maharaj Nabi, the son of Agnidra. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This is an example of the omnipotence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although he is one without a second, he expands himself by Swamsha, his personal expansion, and sometimes by Vibhinnamsha, or his separated expansion. Lord Vishnu herein agrees to send his personal expansion as the son of Meru Devi, the wife of Maharaj Nabi, who is the son of Agnidra. The Ritvija, the priests, knew that God is one, yet they prayed for the Supreme Lord to become the son of Maharaj Nabi, to let the world know that the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is one without a second. When he incarnates, he expands himself in different potencies. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Krishna, thank you. So, like we see the example of three incarnations of the Lord as the son of Aditi and Kashyap, as the son of Shatarup and Anusuya, and as the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. So, there was this benediction, this sage who had asked for benediction that he may attain Lord as his son. So, he got 3 lifetimes to attain the Lord as his son. So, because there cannot be anyone equivalent to the Supreme Lord, no one can be. So, here we see because the priests, so now we have to see carefully. It was the desire of Maharaja Nabhi, but the priests were performing this sacrifice on behalf of Nabhi. And because the priests were pure Brahmanas, they were very dear to the Lord became obliged to help them out. And therefore he agreed to become his own, he agreed to incarnate as a son of Nabhi. So Lord herein agrees to send his personal expansion as the son of Meru Devi, the wife of Maharaj Nabhi, who is the son of Agnitra. So the priests knew that Lord cannot bifurcate himself. But still they requested because they know the Lord continuously expands. So Ite chamsha kalapumsha Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam Indrali Vakulam Lokam Mrudayanti Yuge Yuge. So of all the expansions and incarnations and expansions of incarnations, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because Lord is continuously expanding. Lord is continuously expanding. So it's not a big effort for him to expand as one incarnation of himself in the womb of Meru Devi. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, can you please repeat the last verse that you just quoted? Ete wala jo tha abhi, wo kala wala.
Ete chamsh kala pumsha Krishnastu
Haan ji.
Bhagwan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mrudayanti Yuge Yuge. This comes in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. That all the list of incarnations and expansions and expansions of incarnations, Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and whenever the demons create disturbances in this universe, he incarnates himself.
I'll find it there. Thank you,
This is
Prabhuji.
1 to 10.
1 to 10.
verse.
Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
I'll just check and give you the exact number. I think it's 1 to 10.
ठीक है ठीक है thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Okay, text 19. Shri Shuka Uvacha.
Krishna Vacha.
निशा मयन्त्या मेरुदेव्याः पतिम् अभिधायान्तर्दभे भगवान्.
Iti Nisham
Shukavacha,
Yantya
Nisham,
Merudevya
Yatya,
Patim
Merudevya,
Avidya
Patim, Abhidhyayanta,
Dhayan Tartade Bhagavan.
Drade Bhagwan.
Ready to?
Yes, please.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Translation purport by Sri Prabhupada. Prabhat ki jai. Sukadeva Goswami continued. After saying this, the Lord disappeared. The wife of King Nabhi, Queen Marudevi, was sitting by the side of her husband, and consequently, she could hear everything Supreme Lord had spoken. According to Vedic injunctions, one should perform sacrifices in the company of one's own wife. Saptanako, Dharmam, Achite, religious rituals should be performed with one's wife. Therefore, Maharaj Navi conducted his great sacrifice with wife by his side. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So one should perform sacrifices in the company of one's own wife. Now, this injunction is applicable on the platform of Karma Kanda, because on the platform of Karma, the wife is known as Ardhangini. She's half of the man. She's the other half. So husband and wife together can perform all the rituals. Otherwise, the Vedic rituals have no meaning. Like bachelors can't go and start performing yajnas and, appease the Lord or something. They can't do that. It has to be done in the association of one's wife. Of course, there are many qualifications to it. And in this age of Kali, it's impossible. Because, Brahmanas must be pure. The Havan Kunda, Havan Samagri must be pure. The husband must be pure and wife must be pure. So in this Kali Yuga, this is impossible. So therefore, these sacrifices cannot be performed. So Harer Naam eva kevalam. Only the holy name. Kalau nastir gati anyatha. There is no other way in Kali Yuga. So on the spiritual platform, on the other hand, this kind of, this excessive attachment or association of the wife is not desirable, because both the husband and the wife are going to be separated one day. So in spiritual life, there is no such injunction, because the spiritual life begins with the very understanding that I am the soul, I am not this body. So what kind of a husband or wife can a soul have? The only Ekala Bhratya Krishna or Ekala Purusha Krishna are Sabhabhratya. So if Krishna is the only Purusha, then how can the soul be a husband or have a wife? The soul can only have one husband, and that's Krishna. So therefore, these injunctions are only applicable on the material platform, not the spiritual one. So sometimes devotees mistake this and they think, oh, Prabhu, look at me, I am sitting and chanting with my wife. Well, that's okay, that's nice. Engage your wife in devotional service or your husband in devotional service, that's nice. But your devotional service does not depend on your husband or your wife. In the end, everyone must fly his own aeroplane. So in this material platform, yes, your husband or your wife may help you somewhat. But in the final scheme of things, prana prayana samaye, then at the time, no husband, no wife. You are flying your own aeroplane. After death, you have no memory of whether you are a man or woman or anything. You are there, and there is soul. You are the soul, and then there is this material nature, and that's it. So whatever spiritual credits you have acquired on your own, only they are going to benefit you. Hare Krishna. Text
Hare Krishna.
12. Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji is talking that in ISKCON, especially our trust, that Maha Mantra is the last thing.
Yes.
To do Maha Mantra, jap and whatever it is.
Hmm.
And no ritual should be performed.
Hmm.
I find this section of the priests, even ISKCON, who are performing the Karma Kandas and do authoritatively. So what is the background of this?
Even I don't know, because Prabhupada never encouraged those things. See, we have to understand one thing, that things have changed with time. people are not so pious anymore. Srila Prabhupada was very strict. Srila Prabhupada's standard was very different. See, when Vrindavan temple was being inaugurated, so these Chaturvedis and these Chaturvedis and Dubes of Vrindavan were invited, because I know one. I mean, I had one colleague in my company whose grandfather was one of the priests, whose grandfather or one of his uncles was a priest in the opening of Vrindavan temple. So he was telling me very proudly that, see, we are the Chaturvedis of Vrindavan. And, when your Hare Krishna temple was opened, we performed this ceremony. So, I mean, I was quite like, I was like, because Prabhupada said that this is all useless. Krishna will not come by these mantras. Krishna will only appear by sincere Sankirtan. So these Chaturvedis and all, they were performing this Agnihotras. At that time, the devotees stopped chanting when they started reciting the mantras. Prabhupada got angry. He said, you think the Lord will appear with these Havan and Yajnas? He will appear by your Sankirtan. So you continue your Kirtan. So that was it. So and he said that this mantra, this Yajna, all these things are just to show to Hindus that we are bona fide. Prabhupada himself did not consider these Yajnas very seriously. I think he only performed these marriage Yajnas, which he stopped after mid-70s. And he also used to perform initiation Yajnas. Other than that, Prabhupada never did anything else. So, not necessary at all. I mean, one can do for his own happiness, nothing wrong in it. I mean, it's not like some kind of, it's not some sinful thing or anything, but it has no value. In the age of Kali, it has no value. Like in a city like Bombay, what wood are we burning? We're burning some rotten mango wood or something which is not considered good. So there are different, and where do we get, this durva grass? Where do we get pure ghee, which is churned by hand? So all these things are not available even in India now at large, what to speak of Bombay. So when they are not available, what kind of yajna will be successful? It's just like burning fire and raising some smoke.
Some devotee does it, it's okay, we can say, out of ignorance or something. But this is being performed in the temples and ISKCON temples.
Yeah.
One temple was, I think, foundation stone was being laid down. I was present there. And they performed all the yajnas. Of course, I think chanting was Mahamantra. That I am not really sure. But subsequently, when I attended such Havan, the chanting was a Mahamantra. And the Havan. So that was still very impressive and striking. But I just want to know, because when we say this should not be done, why we are still encouraging? Because Prabhupada was about 30 years back and all that. But now things have changed a lot.
Yeah, so actually we have degraded still further. So yajnas are even more important now. So, I mean, one can do if he feels like it, but one should understand that these are only on material platform. They have no spiritual significance. Only thing of spiritual significance is chanting, Sankirtan.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, can I ask one more question?
Yes.
So, in the same from you said, okay, in chanting we'd say Naam Nami Ek Hai. Yeah, we should think as if Krishna is in front of us. Krishna will come when we chant, right? So the word that was used is Shabd Brahman. Can you please explain a little bit more about what does exactly Shabd Brahman mean?
Shabd Brahman. See, Krishna's name, fame, form, pastime, they are all one. Krishna is Advaita. Advaita. Like if you say Madhu Sevit, that's not me. That's just my name. You can recite my name whole day and nothing will happen. But Krishna is not like this, because I am different from my name. In this birth, I have this name. In some other birth, I will have some other name. His names will just change. But Krishna is Krishna. His name and his fame, his form, his pastime, everything is the same. When you say Krishna, he is there. Because your eyes are covered with Maya, you cannot perceive him. But Krishna is there. So that's why chanting of the holy names is so important. So Krishna's name, fame, form, pastime, everything are one. So that's why he's Advaita. There is no duality in Krishna.
Mhm.
So this is Nam and Nami. This is the one thing. When you are chanting the
Mhm.
holy name, Krishna is there.
Mhm.
You cannot see. Like, for example, you are dialing some mobile phone, the call is going. Or,
Mhm.
suddenly you call up someone and your phone freezes over.
Mhm.
The other person can hear you, but you cannot. So the connection is established, but you cannot perceive it.
Mhm. ठीक है Thank you, Ravi. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so we continue text 20. बर्हिषि तस्मिन् एव विष्णु दत्त भगवान परमर्षिभिः प्रसादितो
बर्हिषि तस्मिन् एव विष्णुदत्त भगवान् परमर्षिभिः प्रसादितो
Sadhito.
नाभे प्रिय चिकीर्षया तद अवरोधायने मेरुदेव्यां धर्मान्
Nabhe
नाभे प्रिय चिकीर्षया
तदवरोधायने
तद्वरोधारणे
मेरुदेव्यां
मरुदेव्यां धर्मान्
Dharma.
दर्शयितु कामो वात रशनानां श्रमणानां ऋषीणाम् ऊर्ध्व मंथिनां शुक्लया तनुवावततार
दर्शये तुकामो वातरशन्नानं श्रमणां ऋषीणां शुक्लया तनुवावततार
Yes, please.
Translation interpret by his divine grace by Prabhupada. Translation. O Vishnu Datta, Parikshit Maharaj, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was pleased by the great sages at that sacrifice. Consequently, the Lord decided to personally exhibit the method of executing religious principles, as observed by brahmacharis, sannyasis, vanaprasthas, and grihasthas, engaged in rituals, and also satisfy Maharaj Nabhi's desires. Consequently, he appeared as the son of Mary Devi in his original spiritual form, which is above the modes of material nature. Purpose. When the Supreme Lord appears or descends as an incarnation within this material world, he does not accept a body made out of three modes of material nature: Sattvaguna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna. Mayavadi philosophers say that the impersonal God appears in this material world by accepting a body in the Sattvaguna. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti states that the word Sukla means consisting of Suddha Sattva. Lord Vishnu descends in a Suddha Sattva form. Suddha Sattva refers to the Sattva Guna, which is never contaminated. In this material world, even the mode of goodness, Sattva Guna, is contaminated by tinges of Rajoguna and Tamoguna. When Sattva Guna is never contaminated by Rajo and Tamoguna, it is called Suddha Sattva. Sattvam Visuddham Vasudeva Sabditam. Bhagavatam 4.3.23. That is a platform of Vasudeva, whereby the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva can be experienced. In Bhagavad Gita 4.7, Krishna himself says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abdyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam sajami aham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice for descendant of Bharata and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Unlike ordinary living entities, the Supreme Lord is not forced by the modes of material nature to appear. He appears dharman darshayatu kama, to show how to execute the functions of a human being. The word dharma means for human beings and is never used in connection with beings inferior to human beings, such as animals. Unfortunately, without being guided by the Supreme Lord, human beings sometimes manufacture a process of dharma by concoction. Actually, dharma cannot be made by man. Dharman tu sakshat bhagavad pranitam. Bhagavatam 6.3.19. Dharma is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as the law is given by the state government. Man-made dharma has no meaning. Srimad Bhagavatam refers to man-made dharma as Kaitava Dharma, cheating religion. The Supreme Lord sends an avatara, incarnation to teach human society the proper way to execute religious principles. Such religious principles are Bhakti Marga, as the Supreme Lord himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharman Parityaja Mam Ekam Saranam Bhaja. Son of Maharaj Nabi, Rishabhadeva, appeared on this earth to teach the principles of religion. That will be explained in the 5th chapter of this 5th canto. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 3rd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Rishabhadeva's appearance in the womb of Meru Devi, the wife of King Nabi. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So, O Vishnu Datta, Parikshit Maharaj, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was pleased by the great sages at the sacrifice. Consequently, the Lord decided to personally exhibit the method of executing religious principles. See, the Lord's appearance is never in vain. You see, in Christianity, there's one of the regulative principles or one of the commandments, as they call it. Thou shalt not take thy lords in vain. So what does it mean? What does it mean to take the name of the Lord in vain? Lord is not doing anything useless. Like in this material life, even we do so many activities which are completely useless. Anartha, something that has no meaning. So anartha, meaningless activities. So all our activities generally are anarthas. But the Supreme Lord is free from all these anarthas. So Lord's appearance can never go in vain. Now here, the priests have requested, Maharaj Nabhi has desired the Lord to have the Lord as his son. So what does that mean? So he wants the Lord as his son. Now certainly his desire is just to have a divine son. But the Lord will not appear just in vain. So he will come and establish the religious principles as Maharaj Rishabhadev. So see, Abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam sajamyam, whenever the religious principles have declined. So one can say that under the influence of Agnidra and even Nabhi, gradually the principle of renunciation might have been kind of, vanishing. Therefore, we see Maharaj Rishabdev will establish, when he is giving his teachings to his sons, when we see chapter 5, where we see the real purpose of Lord's appearance, we will see that he will talk about the true knowledge. So just like we see the story of Maharaj Prachina Barhishat, there also the same thing. Maharaj was too much engaged in materialistic activities, even though he was pious. So here the Lord will come here and again establish the religious principle of understanding the Varnashram in its correct perspective. So, see, in this material world, even the mode of goodness is contaminated by types of Rajoguna and Tamoguna. So, Krishna is on the platform of Vishuddha Sattva. So Lord descends in his original form, whether he appears as Rishabhadev or he appears as Krishna himself. He is always uncontaminated. Even though to our material eyes, he may appear to be contaminated. One may think that Krishna was associating with gopis and queens, but Krishna Nitya Brahmachari. If Krishna is Brahma, so he is definitely Brahmachari. So his acharan is always Brahma. In fact, whatever Krishna does is Brahmacharya. But we cannot imitate that. So therefore, we follow his instructions. Krishna can never be contaminated by Rajoguna or Tamoguna. If an ordinary materially embodied living entity associates with the opposite sex, he will immediately come in the influence of Rajoguna and Tamoguna. But if the Lord himself does it, he will remain uncontaminated. Because the Lord is Vishuddha Sattva. In fact, the living entity who comes in contact with Krishna will be completely purified of this misconception. He'll be purified of sinful desire or sinful desires. As we see the example of Kubja. Kubja was a very contaminated female and she was serving Kansa. But when she came in contact with Krishna, certainly her desire to attain Krishna was not spiritual. Her desire to attain Krishna was very much on the material platform. She became lusty on seeing the beauty of Krishna. But because she became attracted to Krishna, Krishna purified her. So that is the position. So Lord is never contaminated when he comes in this material world. So he establishes this religious principle which is meant for human beings. dharmo hitesham adhiko vishesho dharmena hina pashubhe samanam. So without dharma, the living entity is human, is an animal. So we have to be very cautious. One very important point that Srila Prabhupada mentions here is, unfortunately, without being guided by the Supreme Lord, human beings sometimes manufacture a process of dharma by concoction. So Srimad Bhagavatam refers, so man-made dharma has no meaning. Srimad Bhagavatam refers to man-made dharma as Kaitava dharma, cheating religion. So what does that mean? You see, like in a railway train, if the locomotive is connected to the bogies will run as a train. But if the locomotive is disconnected, the train will simply stay stationary in one place. Or, some electrical device, like Srila Prabhupada, I was just reading one of Prabhupada's lectures and he was explaining about the distinction between demons and demigods. So the Lord sometimes appears on behalf of demigods to defeat the demons. So is the Lord being partial? So Srila Prabhupada answers that no, Lord is not partial. Lord cannot be partial. So what is then divine and what is demonic? So when the Supreme Lord is the source of all energy. So just like an electrical engineer, he connects a heater and an air conditioner. Now the cooler will cool down, heater will heat up. But that is not being done by either electricity or it's not being done by it's not being done by the electrician. It is just happening because of the nature of machine. So just like that, the Lord is also directing the living entity. The living entity is fulfilling his desires in every condition. Sometimes it is demonic, sometimes it is divine. The Lord is simply enabling those desires and regulating them. So dharma is also given by the Supreme Lord to regulate the lives of living entities who are on a human platform. So as long as we are in connection with the Supreme Lord directly, either directly with Krishna, Srila Prabhupada mentions that, either directly with Krishna or with his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, we are in the spiritual platform. But if we disconnect from the spiritual master, then we are material. So if we concoct our own process, even within bhakti, then we are not connected with Krishna. So therefore, in the process of bhakti, we must follow the instructions of the acharyas as they are given without changing anything. Srila Prabhupada emphasized this so many times. Do not change anything. Because as soon as we change something, we have no idea what is happening. Everything will appear pious to us, but because we are blind spiritually, we will be misguided. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments? Okay.
No, Prabhuji, we are good.
Yes?
No, we are good, Prabhuji.
Okay, so we stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavad Prabhu.
Krishna, Dhanavad Pranam. Thank you.